I haven't done one of these in a while where I just sit down without a script and talk about something gaming related that doesn't have to do with a specific game. So I have some time before my 2 a.m. Uh, campaign. It's called the Thousand Blades, and it's a Pathfinder campaign about a group of semi-immortal samurai with these magical, self-aware swords, hence Thousand Blades. But anyway, I had some time, so I wanted to talk about something that has been bothering me for a while, and that is the idea that crunchier, as we call them, or more mechanic heavy games are inherently restricting roleplay, and the idea that simpler games encourage them more. The most common argument you're going to see about this online is going to be the classic edition debate of 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons versus Pathfinder. Now, personally, I fall on Team Pathfinder, but it doesn't matter why. So, the basic premise of this argument is that, hold on, let me grab my books here, is that 5th edition encourages roleplay by having less rules, whereas Pathfinder, let me grab the core rulebook here. Whereas Pathfinder, because it has significantly more rules, discourages roleplay just by nature of it being a game with a lot of mechanics. And I take offense to this. I strongly disagree. So basically, first of all, it's a role-playing game, okay? In my opinion, by taking out a lot of the mechanics, I'm not saying you need a mechanically heavy game to play, but by making games where you take out all of the mechanics entirely, which you'll see in games like Monster Hearts and things like that, I think you're cheapening what it is to be a game. I think that at its core, role-playing games need that, at the very least, you need dice or some kind of randomization generator in order to create a better gaming experience. And that's just my opinion. Other people's opinions are perfectly valid. So why then do people think that 5th edition is inherently more friendly to roleplay than Pathfinder? Well, as I said, it's because 5th edition has a lot less rules than Pathfinder, and to be completely honest, a lot of the rules that are presented are left intentionally vague, to the point where when people write into the Wizards of the Coast advice column to ask about specific rulings, their response is almost always ask your game master, or sorry, dungeon master, or some variation thereof. So I think that no, having more mechanics in a game does not discourage roleplay, because they're two entirely separate things. Like, just because Pathfinder has a flowchart for the way grappling works doesn't mean that the game has plastered on every page, "You aren't allowed to talk to farmers. You aren't allowed to roleplay amongst yourselves." No, that's just not true. Pathfinder is a role-playing game. Okay, you are taking on the roles of characters and you are playing them. You're giving them personalities. You're giving them mannerisms, likes and dislikes. It's a role-playing game. Okay? Like, as far as I'm concerned, you get the same level of roleplay out of, say, the Dresden Files RPG than you do out of Starfinder, Pathfinder, D20 Modern. Fate has the same level of role-playing as GURPS. And what is that level? Well, that level is what your group wants. Like, it's about the group you're playing in. It's not the individual system's responsibility to tell you to roleplay. Every role-playing game tells you to roleplay. Like, this really gets me. I've had this conversation far too many times online where I've given in to people baiting, and I go, and I'm notoriously bad at articulating my arguments. I'm very bad at having a thought and putting that thought into words that people can understand. In other words, I'm bad at speaking, which is my job. So, yeah, basically, the best role-playing moments I've had come from Pathfinder. And it's not because Pathfinder's better, it's just because I happen to play Pathfinder more than anything else. Like, take, for example, here, let's take World of Darkness. Wraith, the Great War. My players are starting up a Wraith campaign soon. We're doing a 3-shot, taking place just after World War I in the Wraith the Oblivion RPG. And this game is supposed to be, all of World of Darkness is supposed to be, you know, role play first. But if that were the case, why do they have their own dice system? Why do they have their own combat mechanics? And why then are all of the powers left to dice rolls? Well, because randomness makes it the game. I have been rambling for far too long, and I'm absolutely certain that most of this is incoherent nonsense. But, yeah. Moral of the story is, please stop with the addition wars. Stop looking down on people for playing differently than you do. I know it sounds stupid and obvious, but we see it all the time. Like, I'm guilty of it. I am very guilty of saying, oh, a story game? Well, that sounds awful. I brought that up in the beginning. I don't like Monster Hearts because it's a game with few mechanics. It's a game all about the story, and the story is... Okay, I'm getting off topic here, but... Oh, man. Honestly, I'm mostly just here killing time before my game starts. I have about 2 minutes or so left where I can freely talk, so why not? Oh! Let's talk about death in RPGs while I'm here. So, there's kind of this old school killer GM thing where there's a whole argument about whether or not allowing player characters to die should exist. I'm all for it. That said, if you are going out trying to kill the player characters, you're a douchebag GM. Why? Because you have full control over the world. You can say, rocks fall, everyone dies, and rocks fall and everyone will die, but nobody's gonna want to play with you if you do that. Just like nobody's gonna want to play with you and say you're like me and you accidentally have a couple of weeks where one or more characters die every session. Across 7 games. Anyway, so then there's, on the opposite side of the spectrum, people who believe that, you know, death should only happen in RPGs if the player and the game master both agree to it ahead of time. No, I don't subscribe to that. In my opinion, just like with the role-playing argument, by taking away death from RPGs, you're taking away the risk of adventuring. You're taking away part of the game element. Yes, characters die sometimes, and it sucks, but, like, some of the best stories from my games come from people epically dying, or maybe they did something supremely stupid and had it coming, or maybe they fought valiantly to the last man. In my last Starfinder game, only 2 of the 4 players were left alive, and both of which only had 1 hit point after a nasty series of encounters. And it was awful. It was tense. It was probably one of the worst gaming experiences I've ever had. But the end of it, it was amazing. The sheer thrill of having survived and beaten an encounter against all odds, amazing. Anyway, take all this with a grain of salt, what you will. I'm an old man. I have views on RPGs that not everyone agrees with, and that's fine. Thank you very much for watching and putting up with my bullshit. Have a great day.